Hello from London and Europe, where more and more countries are recognising the state of Palestine. Most recently, Britain and France among them, with the French president getting a standing ovation at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. In fact, the majority of countries in the European Union have now made the move. But the EU's support for Israel's military actions in Gaza has highlighted deep divisions across the bloc. Some view Israel as a strategic partner, while others are pressing for measures to uphold human rights and international law. These differences revealing the complex balancing act facing EU leaders and underline the ongoing tensions that shape Europe's diplomacy. Brian Carter reports from Brussels.
Less than a week after October 7, 2023, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola, traveled to Israel, visiting some of the places attacked by Hamas. The Commission later expressed the full support of the EU for Israel to pursue its military offensive on Gaza.
Europe stands with Israel. And Israel has the right to defend itself. In fact, it has the duty to defend its people.
This one-sided show of support in favor of Israel was quickly criticized by many across the EU, highlighting divisions within the bloc that continue to this day. For the last 2 years, millions of demonstrators across Europe, joined by labor unions, NGOs, and even EU staff, have been calling unsuccessfully for measures to be taken against Israel. For this scholar, the EU's inaction differs sharply from the measures taken against Russia after its invasion of Ukraine.
Europe has imposed on Russia some 15 packages of sanctions, but has been incapable after 2 years of intense bombardment and onslaught on Gaza to adopt one single sanction against Israel.
Many in the West see Israel as an ally. Strong defense and economic ties, along with a lingering sense of historical responsibility, still shape some EU states, especially its most powerful, Germany.
For Germany, Israel is a raison d'etat, which means that Germany will not adopt a measure which would be considered as a punishment for the state of Israel or as sanctioning the state of Israel.
Some EU lawmakers have long pushed for a suspension of the EU-Israel Association Agreement, which commits both sides to respect for human rights and democratic principles. Following pressure from some member states and an internal review suggesting Israel breached these obligations, the Commission proposed in September measures to suspend the free trade provisions of the agreement. But for this MEP, it's too little, too late.
Thank you very much.
We made the argument to the European Commission that their obligation is to uphold the treaties and to uphold law and order and the rules-based system that they like to talk about a lot. So therefore, they should have been the one who were proactive around a breach of Article 2. They shouldn't have had to wait for member states to get agreement at the Council.
A final decision by member states is expected in the coming weeks, but deep divisions remain, and the impact of the trade measures is likely to be limited. Brian Carter, TRT World in Brussels.
Well, joining me now is Palestinian-British political commentator and filmmaker Yousef El Helou. Yousef, I want to start with your reflections on this anniversary because you grew up in Gaza, you were a journalist there for a long time, you still have family, including your parents there. What is going through your mind?
I still cannot believe that the city of my birth is systematically being destroyed as we speak right now. It breaks my heart that those family members that I grew up with, they are no longer there. I lost my sister, Asma, and her beautiful 7 children, nephews and nieces, and dozens of my relatives. The house I grew up in is destroyed. My family is internally displaced, and they are facing man-made starvation and famine. So it's really devastating to me that we, on the 2nd anniversary of this genocide, that my family have been busy surviving. But what worse than that is that they are unable to grieve, because this ongoing genocide means that they have to look for themselves, the safety, they have to hide, they have to look for the food. So I'm outraged from the complicity and silence of the governments of the world who are taking little steps to pressure Israel to end this genocide. This should not have lasted for almost 2 years.
And so when you talk about that silence, obviously a lot of Western governments have recognised the state of Palestine recently. There is a growing swell, a growing movement amongst both public opinion and several countries. How does that fit into it for you? Obviously, there is a lot of celebration, but it must be very difficult as well, as you say.
It's a welcome step. It's a symbolic one. It means a lot to us that finally the world has awakened. The governments of the world, they recognize Palestine as a state. But will Israel abide by this recognition? Will it end the occupation? What does it mean that Palestine is recognized while people are being ethnically cleansed, being genocided? We have no sovereignty on our borders. We have no airport, no seaport. It's a long overdue recognition, but we have been existed for centuries. So the main issue here is to remove the denial of our existence. So I wish that the world will really stand firm against Israeli colonization and occupation, and I'm happy because of the solidarity and growing support for the Palestinian cause. When governments fail their people, they don't speak up to the injustice, then people take the initiatives, and I'm proud of the activists who risked their lives on board of the flotilla coming to Gaza to break the siege. And I see millions around the world, especially in London, they voice their concern and anger and frustration that it's enough. Palestinians must be liberated. Palestinians must have their self-defense because Palestinians need the security. And it's outrageous that the world is allowing this injustice and suffering to go on for 80 years.
Yusuf, thank you so much. Stay with me. I'll come back to you very shortly. Well, recent polls, too, reflect growing public support for Palestinian statehood. Here in the UK, 44% of Brits support their Prime Minister's decision. When it comes to 18 to 24-year-olds, that figure is even higher, with 2/3 of that age group supporting the move. Across Western Europe as a whole, public opinion on Israel is at its lowest. Only 13 to 21% of people in any country now have a positive view. In contrast, 63 to 70% have unfavourable views. Spain was one of the first European countries to officially recognise the state of Palestine. But it didn't come from government circles alone. It was powered by years of activism and pressure from civil society. Jaime Velasquez reports on how grassroots pressure groups helped drive Madrid's decision.
On the streets of Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, week after week, demonstrators have rallied under Palestinian flags. From student sit-ins to cultural boycotts, the Spanish people's support for Gaza has become one of the loudest in Europe. BDS, or Boycott, Divestments and Sanctions, is a Palestinian-led movement which aims through non-violent means to pressure Israel to comply with international law. It receives strong backing in Spain.
There's now a human tide, a movement that has already said enough. We saw it in the actions during the Vuelta. This is a campaign led by BDS, but at the same time, it's a way of citizen pressure. We're working together. We are a great team, and this is already unstoppable.
While many here condemned the Hamas attacks on October the 7th, it was Israel's response in Gaza that sparked a wave of outrage.
In just 2 years, we've managed to bring together 620 organizations, human rights groups, environmental and feminist movements. In the end, it is everyone's struggle, because if we allow this to happen in Palestine, tomorrow it could happen anywhere else.
Activism has found new energy in Spain's universities. At Madrid's Complutense campus, students occupied a faculty overnight to demand an end to the massacre in Gaza and to call for the safe return of the activists of the Sumut flotilla.
We're witnessing a genocide in real time, and we believe it's the duty of working people and students to show the solidarity that our governments are refusing to show.
The Spanish government announced it recognized Palestine as a state in May and has recently become the first European country to impose an arms embargo. Activists felt it was their own victory.
For years, activists here argued that the recognition of a Palestinian state would only happen if pressure came from below. Now they say it's proof that public opinion can shape foreign policy.
We understand that the recognition of Palestine and the measures adopted were forced by the mobilization of workers and students. We see it as a victory, but still a partial one.
But despite new peace talks and recent successes, activists insist the fight isn't over.
The next step is to continue. We've spent 20 years fighting through different campaigns to dismantle all the pillars that sustain Zionism, and we'll keep going. There are victories to celebrate, but this isn't the end. Once we achieve a full, transparent arms embargo, we will keep working.
2 years on, Spain's lead on the recognition of a Palestine state is a milestone for Spanish civil society. But activists are preparing new actions, determined to keep their movement alive once the cameras move on. Jaime Velázquez, TRT World, Madrid.
Well, Yusuf is still with me. Yusuf, I want to talk more about the response from Israel to these countries recognising the state of Palestine, because there were fears that they would provoke a stronger response, more retaliation in terms of annexation of the West Bank and so on. Has that produced itself? And arguably, many would say it's already happening.
Well, it's pathetic because Israel is isolated more than any other time. And Israel says that this recognition is a reward for Hamas. It's not. The world is outraged from Israel's violations of international law, humanitarian law. The world is astonished from the level of oppression that Israel is imposing on the Palestinian side. So I think the next step is to impose effective sanctions on Israel, to force it to abide by international law, to translate this symbolic recognition into practicality on the ground. Also, what's needed is to impose full arms embargo. Israel must feel the pressure because it's out of control. It has never been held accountable. Netanyahu is wanted by the ICJ. Many international organizations are calling on the world body to abide by international law. So it's not acceptable in the 21st century that Israel justifies its attacks on Gaza by saying that it does what it does for self-defense.
And I think that's exactly, and you made the point just previously, that this recognition of Palestinian statehood, it is one step, but it does not add that pressure. And so many people would say it's all very well doing it, but what now?
Netanyahu laughed and he said that he will punish those countries who dare to recognize Palestine. Imagine the mentality of this person. They know that they will not be able to, convince the world that they are peace doves. Israel has never been interested in peace. When you attack the negotiator in Qatar, this means they don't like to end the occupation, they don't like to end the genocide. So unless they feel the pressure, then Israel will continue to treat Palestinians as collateral damage and as numbers.
And what about those countries, Germany, Italy, who say they won't recognise Palestine right now? Do you see ever in the future a shift there, or do you think that that's something that's unlikely to change?
Well, I think they are on the wrong side of history because Palestinians recognized as human beings. So to delay this recognition until the hostages are free is nonsense, because this recognition is not going to create a Palestinian state instantly. It's the first step to tell the world that Palestinians deserve to be a free nation. Those who abstained from recognizing Palestine as a state, they will be remembered by Palestinians are the ones who actually prolonged the absence of Palestinian statehood. Palestinians are happy to see the Palestinian flag waved around the world. They are happy to see the Palestinian kufiya waved around the world. Israel wants to kill the Palestinian dream, but the whole world became Palestine. And Israel is annoyed from this growing solidarity and support. Israel is isolated, as I said, more than any time before. And I think they have to realize that what they are doing is not going to be loved. They are the most hated nation on earth. See what happened to them when they go to vacationing in Thailand and so on. So I think it's important that they realize that they did not only shoot themselves in the foot, but in the head.
Yusuf El-Helou, political commentator and filmmaker, thank you so much for joining me here in London just 2 weeks after the UK recognised the state of Palestine.